This is an SM Media production.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of Golf Talk right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always, and I'm delighted to bring this show back. It's been a while since we've had a golf show, and there's no better occasion like the Masters to get the show back into good shape. And we're delighted to welcome, you've seen them before on the show, both of them, but it's a pleasure to welcome them both back. We'll start first of all. If you're ever in Largs, then you'll know this man. He's a very well respected pro in the Ayrshire game. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the show, Andy Fullen. Andy, thanks very much for coming back on.
No, not at all, Scott. Delighted to be on. Delighted to talk about my favourite event of the season. So, no, thanks for inviting me on.
It's an absolute pleasure, and we're also delighted to welcome back to the show a two-time winner on the European Tour, one of the best talents that Scotland's produced in many years. A pleasure to welcome back to the show, Alastair Forsyth.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having us on. Looking forward to it. Obviously, this is the traditional official start of the golf season. The clocks are forward and the Masters is coming up. So we're buzzing. All we need now is it stop raining.
That's exactly what it's like as well. And we're recording this on the Thursday night, so we're a week away from the Masters starting, and there's no better time because I was just watching before we came on the women's amateur as well at Augusta, and you just get that buzz. So you just seen that course and the shape it's in, it just gives you that wee buzz back just to see it. But obviously, a lot has happened in the golfing world since we last did a golf show. We have obviously, Andy, I'll start with you. It's been a bit of a crazy kind of 18 months or so in the golfing world, isn't it? The landscape is a lot different than it was the last time we sat and did this.
One or two things have kind of cropped up. But with the whole LIV Golf bulldoze its way through the professional golf ranks. PGA Tour's changed to try and combat that. We've lost some players from the PGA Tour going to LIV. Bit of a civil war in golf, really. But I think it's showing signs of starting to kind of calm down. There's a lot of kind of stress and stuff at the time, and where is golf going? What's going to happen? Who's going to leave? It seems to have settled down a little bit there. The PGA Tour have reacted as well. The PGA Tour season this year has been absolutely fantastic already this year with the way they've kind of structured their elevated events. But yeah, it's been a pretty tumultuous 18 months, certainly in the golf world.
Alistair, the way to kind of looking from the outside, kind of looking in, obviously, like I kind of look at this in three stages. You obviously had the kind of build up to LIV Golf, where it was kind of talked about for a couple of years, but it was one of those things that was very unlikely we thought it would ever happen, and if it did happen, would the kind of big players sign up? And then obviously Greg Norman getting on board, and then we obviously had Phil Mickelson joining, and then we saw the exodus of the likes of Dustin Johnson joining, and it just became this kind of big thing that was going against the PGA Tour. It was breaking the tradition of golf. And where are we at now with it? Because obviously as Andy says, and I do agree that it has kind of calmed down. Like, I don't think we're at the stage where it's dominating the headlines as much. Obviously, this will be the first Masters, and there is a bit of the first Masters where LIV golfers can play, and it is kind of calmed down. But for a while, it was a civil war, and it totally changed the landscape of golf.
Yeah, it's certainly calmed down. I mean, it's calmed down because for me, nobody's watching it. I could even tell you, apparently you can watch it on YouTube. Apart from that, I believe they're signed up to some other channel. I've got absolutely no interest in going to try and find a way of watching it. Andy said that the PGA Tour have been brilliant this season. I've found myself watching a lot more golf than I would normally watch on a Sunday night, and I've actually really enjoyed it. But the LIV thing is calmed down because there's also, as far as I'm aware, nobody has, none of the big names have certainly signed up in recent times. So it went a bit kind of mental to start with, all these kind of so-called big names. I mean, your Mickelsons and Poulter and Westwood, that sort of thing, their best days were behind them. And Fred Couples said it a few weeks ago. He said, if somebody wants to give Phil Mickelson 150 million to go and shoot 75 every other day, then fair play, good luck to them. But I've got no interest in it at all. The guys have gone there, no idea. We're looking at, obviously, the Masters coming up. Is DJ playing well? Is Cam Smith playing? We don't really know, apart from hearing the odd wee comment here and there. So I don't think. I think it's potentially starting to die a death already. I don't really get what the Saudis are getting out of it. Maybe they're trying, obviously trying to make themselves look better and put themselves on the international scene. But what are they actually getting out of throwing all this money at these golfers to go to play in events that nobody's interested in? So I can't see it really getting any bigger, to be honest. I think you might find this. Where's Bryson DeChambeau? He was at the hot ticket, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. No one was even talking about him. But I think when it comes to Augusta, I feel that the players that have left, I don't agree. I mean, by the way, I'll be there in a minute. If somebody offers those kind of figures, especially late on in your career, I don't get Cam Smith doing what he did. I mean, he's just won the Open. He's world number one, world number two. His career's going that way, and he slides off to that. I mean, he was going to make fortunes in the game as it was. But I don't agree that the players that leave should be allowed to play in the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, and the majors. Because I don't think it's right. They can have their cake and eat it. But at the same time, from a selfish point of view, we want to sit down next Thursday and watch the Masters, and we don't want to watch the Masters and say maybe 5 of the best players in the world aren't there.
Yeah.
So it's a very difficult one, but I hope the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour manage to keep the players away, and you're going to see it, and it won't take that long that they start dropping out the world rankings, because there doesn't seem to be any future for them in terms of getting ranking points. So they'll start to disappear out of the majors soon enough as well.
And do you think it's that, obviously, Alistair brought up there about Cameron Smith obviously winning the Open, and then the week after signing up for LIV Golf, and we saw the likes of kind of Joaquin Niemann, there was Abraham Answer, they're probably the best most of the best players outside the Europe and US point of view. Do you think it was that for them, they don't have that heritage thing with maybe the PGA Tour that maybe a McIlroy maybe for a different reason, but obviously like a Scheffler, like a Spieth, who have came through the whole tradition of coming through the PGA Tour. Do you think it was that for them? They've saw this opportunity to not play as much golf, make a lot more money. I mean, the perfect example, I think someone like Charles Hill made £4 million last week, and I think the best year he'd ever had in the PGA Tour was $3.5 million. So there is that side of it as well. But for the non-European and PGA US players, is that what it was for them? Do you think this opportunity to make money?
I think so. Yeah, I think you make a good point. So some of these players maybe don't have an allegiance to the PGA Tour, like your Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Morikawa, these kind of guys. McIlroy obviously now do. You get the Australian connection with Greg Norman for maybe someone like Cam Smith, Mark Leishman. I totally agree with what Al says. So, I mean, Cam Smith for me was a real strange one from a career point of view, because he's just won the 150th Open Championship. He's written his name in history. He's only going to go and make more money. But I get the point of view that if LIV was going to be this new worldwide tour, and a lot of the recent players have been, like you say, foreign to the PGA Tour, if you like. So there is an attraction there, but not I'll describe it well. Nobody's watching it. Nobody's really, it'll be really interesting. The one they had, they got one in Melbourne. I think they sold out already, and that'll be their biggest one. But it's just some of the places. I mean, when they go to Saudi Arabia and stuff, nobody's there. It's just how do they grow it? I think they've really missed a trick by not going global really, really quickly, and to try and really capitalise on these kind of players, because it's been so quiet over the winter period. You know, nobody's really. It's all went quiet. Who's the last player that's been linked to go there? You know, there's been no talk or no rumours or anything. But I think the attraction from the worldwide point of view for these players might have been a sway for them. But it's be difficult to see how it's going to turn out with that. You know.
Alistair, the big obviously thing before we get into top of the Masters, the big thing for obviously from a European perspective is obviously the likes of kind of Poulter, Westwood, Stenson obviously had to relinquish his Ryder Cup captaincy. Like, these guys are synonymous with the Ryder Cup, and Poulter especially. You think, like, how many years did we think Ian Poulter being a captain? That would have been amazing to see, but it's probably not going to happen.
And no, it's not going to happen. No, the Stenson situation shows that, and obviously the American side have been pretty clear that anyone involved in that is not going to be involved in the Ryder Cup. But as I said, if you're Ian Poulter, you're Lee Westwood, Sergio Garcia, Stenson, why didn't Stenson just wait a couple of years? Surely he could have said to the LIV guys, "Look, let me do my captaincy." I know Stenson's had it's been well documented. He's had a couple of situations off the course where he'd lost. He'd lost a lot of money in different things. So I get it. You know, his best days are behind him. He's probably never going to play in another Ryder Cup. Same with Westwood, Garcia, Poulter. We saw that at the last Ryder Cup. You know, they felt as if there was one too many for them. They weren't really in it at all. But it just shows you money talks. You know, people will be, you know, Westwood's a great, phenomenal Ryder Cup career. So is Poulter, so is Garcia, but they'll never be captain. And fair play, I get it. You know, they've seen the dollar signs, and they'll never be Ryder Cup captain. But obviously, you know, it doesn't mean that much to them, that they'll knock back the millions of dollars. Who can blame them? I mean, really, let's be honest. Who can blame them? I'm just hoping at 47 that LIV get into the seniors in about 3 years. But yeah, the legacy goes. The legacy does go a little bit. I just don't like for me, as I said, I just don't like the have a cake and eat it side of things, and just go away and play your golf and go and make your dough, and we'll see what happens down the line. But I think just my opinion, I think there'll be at some point there's going to be guys looking to get this thing the bubble might just burst on this, and these guys will be, you know, your DJ and Cam Smith, etc., might be wanting to get back to the PGA Tour, and it'll be interesting to see if that happens, what happens then. But yeah, I mean, legacy. The Ryder Cup moves on. The Ryder Cup is bigger than any individual player and any captain. So we'll go to Italy next year, and we'll see how we go on. We've already got Luke Donald's a fine man anyway, so we're still in decent shape.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, this kind of whole thing is kind of came about, and it has kind of made golf maybe more than recent years. It's brought it into the kind of mainstream in a better way. We've got a Netflix series I thought was pretty good, actually. I thought it was. I mean, if you've watched it, I thought a lot of it was enjoyable. You were seeing this kind of playing out from a personal perspective, and we're now at a stage, Andy, where, as you say, the PGA Tour, I thought they've done brilliantly and put the elevated events. You're seeing a lot more competitive golf, and it's when I golf fan, every weekend you're looking forward to the tournament, no matter if it's the kind of big players aren't it, it's still very competitive in the PGA Tour and even the DP World Tour as well, because you're seeing a lot more, like, the guys that are staying on. They're more than capable, and there's a lot of guys coming through.
Yeah, I said earlier, the elevated events have been brilliant so far. Really, really enjoyed watching them. I think and the PGA Tour's not absolutely perfect as well, and some people will argue, some players will argue, well, you know, this has only came about because of LIV. Why weren't you thinking about these kind of things, you know, being progressive and all that? But they've had to react, and they've reacted pretty well, I think. But it's the Netflix thing was good. It's has shone a light on golf a little bit differently. Certainly raised the profile of certain players. Be interested to see what players are highlighted in the next one as well. I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. Some good wee bit of insight into guys like Brooks Koepka, which was interesting. I think already there's kind of rumblings of him not being overly happy at LIV, and you could see that just for the character he is. You know, he's pretty competitive, and he's maybe not as settled as a lot of other kind of players. But yeah, the PGA Tour have done a great job, and it's looks as if it's only going to get stronger as it goes on. The strength and depth, like you said, is just frightening. You know, it's some of the players in the non-designated events. You know, you get guys like Matt Wallace won last week. You know, and he's a top player. You know, really talented player, and so yeah, it's in a good place at the moment. I think it's rode the storm pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into talking about what's coming up this week. Obviously, we've got the first major of the year. We head to Augusta, the Masters. It's always the pinnacle of the sport for me. We're now kind of in a position, obviously, with the first major of the year, just going through the kind of contenders. We're now, Alastair, at a stage, we've been desperate for a kind of a big tour rivalry, as it were, like even a big two, or somebody to just take the game by the scruff of the neck and kind of dominate for years. We've got now three, because you look at the betting, for example, Scotty Scheffler, last year's winner, 7-1, John Ram 15-2, Rory McIlroy 15-2 as well, and it's a thing as well that all three of them are going in red hot form to this.
Yeah, the three of them stand out, don't they? From the crowd, they really stand out from the rest. The way this season has gone, I mean, Scheffler just looks like a machine most of the time. He just seems to hit just good shot after good shot after good shot, and he just seems to have a great. His emotions are fantastic. He just seems to, when you're looking at him, whether he's 5 under or 5 over. McIlroy's been very good. He obviously had a bad one at the Players Championship, but then you look at how how someone comes back from that, and right away he was he had a very good performance at the match play. Ram, I mean, at the start of the season, my goodness, he was like unbeatable. You've got three guys that have shown amazing form all season. I mean, Ram obviously maybe had a wee niggle injury, but I'm sure he's okay now. He's maybe gone slightly off and not quite as incredible he was at the start of the season. But yeah, I mean, those three will stand out absolutely. I mean, I think it's very difficult to see past Scheffler at the moment, but there's a lot of golfers just hanging around in the background that have been knocking on the door on the top 5s and top 10s for most of the season on the PGA Tour. So you're never going to see somebody well, I'm not saying never, but certainly no time soon you're going to see anyone dominate the way Woods did.
Mm-hmm.
He took it to completely another level. Nobody's going to do that anytime soon. But these three are kind of that wee step up the ladder from anybody at the moment. But there's another 20 players that you could certainly not discount at all.
Yeah, you've got a lot of players who can dominate. Andy, like with McIlroy in particular, I mean, we've been on here a lot talking about McIlroy, and I mean this isn't. He's now went without a major win in 8 years. But are we talking about McIlroy now in the best version he's been since then, because he's sorted out those problems that he had with his swing. I think he's kind of abandoned the idea that to go all out power, because that was his plan, obviously, to try and match DeChambeau and players like that. And now you've got a lot more composed McIlroy. You've got a McIlroy that I think, obviously, with what we've seen last year, I think he's taken that role as a kind of the leader of the PGA Tour. He's a bit more fire in the belly. This is the best version of McIlroy I think we've seen in a long, long time, and this has the one cap missing from his list, because win this and you've won a Grand Slam and ended that duck, because it's 8 years, and I mean, is that what he's missing? Is this the one thing he's missing to be like that all-time great?
Well, I think if you win the Grand Slam, then that cements his place, definitely. I think I'm expecting big things this week with Rory. I think you look what happened to St Andrews. It just seemed if it was written in the stars for him to win that. He didn't, and then he bounced back really well. I mean, he won the FedEx Cup. Statistically, I think it's his best ever year. Last year, numbers wise and stats wise. So he's probably in the best form. You could argue he's been in certainly since his major win, his last major win in 2014. But yeah, he does seem to have just he's handling himself very well with all the kind of PGA Tour spokesman kind of thing. And he's even said recently that he's certainly the players, he was just looking forward to get back to being a golfer again and stuff like that. So there is a lot of stuff going on in the background. But he's just absolutely, pardon the pun, but tailor-made to win at Augusta. He really is. It's just, his game is absolutely perfect for it. But we've been saying that since 2011 when he the 4-shot lead going into the last round, and if he'd won that, he could have been sitting there with probably 3 or 4 just now. It was just that good at that time. But the longer it goes on, the longer the kind of niggles get in there, and it has been a long time since he's won a major. But I think all things added up with the disappointment of St Andrews, all the other stuff, the way he is playing as well. He's playing fantastic golf. I expect him to be really in the mix this week, and I hope he does win. Really, he's the one out of everyone. He's the one I hope he wins. For what you said, for his legacy to win the Grand Slam, I think he's fantastic if he could do it.
We do have obviously a big three, and they are obviously in form, but we do have a lot of players kind of there as well who are at that kind of level just below, that are kind of this could be their opportunity to break into that kind of top three. I mean, you look at other likes of a Jordan Spieth, who I think is another example. Alistair, he's getting better. He's had great times at Augusta, but he's had some horrendous times, and I think until he gets that Augusta duck off his back again, I think we'll not see that best version of Jordan Spieth. But I mean, the likes of Morikawa, Thomas, Cantley, and Schauffele, for example, like they're guys just kind of they've had major victories, kind of the majority of them. A few of them have been knocking on the door, but you do have this level just below where they're not at that yet, where they're kind of dominating, winning a lot of tournaments, but they're always there or thereabouts.
Yeah. There's got a consistent wee bunch there. You mentioned them all there. Those other three. If someone puts the foot to the floor, they'd be very hard to beat. And the way Scheffler plays, you kind of think that he just will be hanging around there the whole time. But yeah, there's a good bunch, as you say, right there, who easily contend, and they're not scared to go and win. Justin Thomas, I mean, obviously has been there and done it as well. So I really think it's quite open. I wouldn't be surprised if in fact, you can almost be certain there will be one or two from even below that group that you talk about who will contend as well. I mean, Zalatoris is one that's been, he's kind of knocked on the door a fair bit as well in the majors. He's performed very, very well, but we're just waiting to see how those big three come out. I'm with Andy. I hope Rory wins it. I want to see him get the Grand Slam. I mean, Augusta in theory suits his game down to a T. The big thing with him is getting a good first round, I think, as well, because he's so many times he might finish 5th in the end or something like that, but he's been, he shot 74 in the first round, and he's always just playing catch up and never actually gets right in about it. So it'll be good to see him getting a good first round under his belt. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple of dozen players behind that are more than capable of putting themselves in there. So I mean, I think it's a very difficult one to call. This is for me, just apart from Scheffler. I mean, in each way, Scheffler would be pretty hard not to be tempted with.
There are a lot of kind of like you've got the kind of Americans that are kind of busting through. You mentioned obviously Zalatoris there, like Max Homa, Cameron Young, Tony Finau, Sam Burns. There's a lot of players that are kind of breaking through. Andy, like any of them kind of catching your eye? Like I know Cameron Young, somebody I quite like for this week.
Yeah, it's an absolute mile, great ball striker. Pretty new. He's just really last year was his kind of breakthrough year. You know, when it comes to like some majors, and he was tied the third, I think, at the PGA and runner up at the Open. So he's a great major record, out straight out the gate kind of thing. But Max Homa, I like. He's got a pretty poor major record so far, but again, he's fairly new on the scene. But very good iron player. Which you need around Augusta, you know, put the ball in the right spots on the greens. So I like him. He's a Shoffley as well. You know, just world class player. You know, just like I said, no surprise if any of these guys are in contention. But there are a few of these guys like Cantley, for example, Homer mentioned, did not get great major records at all. You know, Cantley particularly has got a really poor for the world class player he is, number 4 in the world. He's got a pretty terrible major record. So that's obviously get your money on him, folks, because that's a kiss of death. Obviously, going to burst through and win by 6 or something now, but it's almost time for these guys to maybe, you know, to try and break through at that kind of level. You know, PGA Tour proven, but it's at next level when the, you know, to kind of try and break through into the top players. You know.
Alastair, like from a kind of European point of view, there's a couple that I think could potentially be contenders this week. Obviously, like Hovland, somebody I think's been kind of knocking on the door. I think Tyrrell Hatton could be a player who could maybe a bit European players this week. Is there anybody kind of flying under the radar that we should be aware of, do you think?
Not really under the radar, I don't think. I mean, I think Hatton is, for me, he's ready. He's kind of, you know, knocking on the door of that next level. He's been featured in the PGA Tour. I think when he sees Matt Wallace winning there, you know, that'll give him a wee G up as well. Not that Tyrrell needs that right enough, but you know, Lowry is proved in the big stage. Absolutely, he's proven in the big stage that he can get over the line as well. But yeah, I like a wee each way in Tyrrell Hatton. I think he's proving himself at that, you know, on the PGA Tour this year, and he's featured in some really big events. He's box office to watch, and it's hilarious watching him. Whether he's got the temperament to get round there, you know, but you know, the different skills that Augusta tests you, and he's a very good, you know, precision iron player. You know, he knocks a lot of flags out, so he'll be able to, you know, plot his way on the right bits of the greens, and that's where obviously like some Morikawa and Shoffley for me are two that you would fancy to do well because they're so precise with their approach shots. The short game of Lowry. Lowry's got a brilliant touch with a wedge and run about the green, so that kid, you know, will play into his hands as well. So they are, you know, the player, you know, other players that are in that wee kind of sort of bubble just below the top ones. But I've got a wee sneaky for Tyrrell Hatton to do well. Yeah,
I can see Hatton having a good week as well. Andy, well, I know we're kind of coming back to LIV here a wee bit, but like a lot of the LIV players are in obviously contention. Like Cameron Smith's there. You've got Dustin Johnson, a few of the guys like kind of Joaquin Niemann as well. With the way the kind of LIV system works now with the 54 holes, is it tough to get back into that mindset for those guys to be playing 4 days, 72 holes, because it is going to be different to what they've experienced for a while?
I think it is. I mean, they're all experienced enough, and you know, certainly some of them get obviously major winners and stuff as well. But I think just from a sharpness point of view, you know, it's going to be difficult. You would presume it would be difficult for them. I don't know. I'm really interested in the pairings to see who they put out with who. I think that could be really good, and I think that could bring out, you know, maybe the best in somebody like a Patrick Reed. You know, I think
McIlroy, Reed and Mickelson. Imagine that. That would be. I mean, get the popcorn out.
Well, the Champions dinner could be good.
Yeah, that'd be good as well. I feel a bit for Scheffler because obviously this is the most important kind of dinner of his career. Do you know what I mean? Hosting, having that, and it's going to be Scotty Scheffler's. It's not going to. Nobody's going to be talking about Scotty Scheffler. Do you know what I mean? It's all going to be about the.
I don't think he'll, but I think he'll just take. I think he's just a type of guy who'll just take it in his stride. I don't think he's really that, but I think he'll be excited about what ice cream he's getting or something like that. You know, that he's chosen. He's just that kind of character. You know, he's. But out of all the LIV guys, obviously Cam Smith is one that you would that should. He's a kind of their top ranked player, so he should be up there. But I don't know. I just think somebody like Patrick Reed too. He thrives in this kind of adversity, and he's an Augusta kind of specialist. He's one round there, and he's got a short game to die for. I don't know. It's just that kind of he plays the baddie really well, and I just kind of think he could. I don't think he's going to win it or anything, but I just think he could have It wouldn't surprise me to see him up near the top of the leaderboard first couple of days or something. You know, come out the traps well, but it certainly adds a bit of an edge to not only next week at Augusta, but all the majors, because there is this kind of LIV angle to it as well. So again, you could argue that the other organisations to win out of this are the majors, you know, at this point anyway, when the LIV guys can play, because they are the only events technically where all the best players are going to be playing at the moment, you know. So so that'll be good to see.
Absolutely. One player who we should mention, obviously, we don't know for definite if he's going to play, but everything seems to be going in the direction that he will turn up, and that is obviously the one and only Tiger Woods. Tiger obviously has said that he will likely kind of only play the majors going forward and one or two events more. So, Alastair, if we are hoping he is going to turn up, I mean, are we now at the stage now with Tiger where it's just relish every opportunity we can see him, because we might not see him very often?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the case. He's the body's given up, isn't it? It's just about giving up. He's starting to really give up. But you know, he played, you know, a few weeks ago. I think it was event
Genesis,
yeah, and again, I tuned in because he was playing.
Yeah,
you know, and millions of people would tune in because he was playing, and he's one of the first. You know, assuming he's good to go, and I think he'll do everything he possibly can to play at Augusta, because that's one place he knows it at the back of his hand. His record's brilliant. We showed just what was it, about 3 years ago when he won it again. At that stage of his career, after all the back injuries and everything, obviously the leg seems to be the biggest issue. But a few weeks ago when he played, he looked good. He looked good. Obviously the walking in the hills and stuff will take its toll. But you would expect him still to be there at the weekend, because he's got the heart of a lion, the talent, more talent in his pinky than most other players can dream of having. And he knows how to get around he knows how to get around any course, but he knows how to get around that course better than anyone. So I would expect him to be there at the weekend. I think it'll be too big an ask to contend. But he'll give it absolutely. He'll fight scrape every last shot that he possibly can, and he's a once in a generation, just an absolute sporting phenomenon, really. You go through all the stuff he's doing, and I saw that documentary that when you see what he was putting himself through to get back to where he was when he won the last time, and he was that you can't teach that. That's in his DNA. It's what he does. So I fully expect him to be there, and I think he'll be there for the weekend as well.
Andy, with obviously Tiger, he's not the Tiger he was even a few years ago. We know that the injuries are catching up and things like that, but he is still the box office attraction, and it is just that as well. At St Andrews last year, there wasn't any chance he was going to win, but just to see him, it is that thing of you tune in and you know that you're watching an icon, and that's where we're at now with Tiger. It is just kind of relish every opportunity we can watch, because as we say, we might not see it very often going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's just what you said. You've got to enjoy him while he's still here, and enjoy some of the shots he can still hit. I mean, I'm just amazed at the speed and stuff he still has, and he's swinging. How it's incredible. I mean, basically, literally almost in one leg. You know, he's an absolute phenomenon. And the viewing figures in the States show that, you know, the vast majority, the average sports fan, not even golf fan, will only watch the PGA Tour if he's there. That's why he's still number one. He's still involved in all these negotiations with all the LIV stuff. He was the one that they went to, him and obviously Rory as well, because close to him. He's just, he's just so important to the sport still. And I don't think he's going to hang about too much and be a kind of ceremonial golfer. You know, I think, the Masters, you'll probably still see him every year or whatever, but I think if he does firmly believe that he can still compete, you know, and possibly that's becoming a bit of a weakness with him because his body has given up, you know, but up here he's still thinking, no, if I can, you know, I mean, it sounds ridiculous. If I can walk the golf course, I can win. You know, it's crazy, but that could ultimately be his downfall. You know, but he's absolute hero of the game, and it's fantastic to see him. You know, he just creates that energy, that buzz that really no other player does, even now.
Before we get into, I'm going to go around the panel and get our final predictions, who we think will win, who we can maybe pick each way. We'll pick a few names out. I've got with any major, I've given 10 in the top of my head. But again, before we get into that, Alastair, this is obviously the unique major where it's at the same venue every year, and it's one of those where we look at records from the past. We've got that advantage. What do we look for in a winner at Augusta? Because it is obviously the course is historic. It's got that kind of, we can look at past records and see like such and such done well last year, but it maybe hasn't in recent years. So we do have that. But what do we kind of look for when we look for the winner of the Masters?
You need a great short game. That's for sure. It's become, you know, it has become the bigger hitter thing as well, which is a wee bit disappointing. But that's modern golf. I mean, I know they've added 35 yards to the 13th to make it more into a par 5. That'll be good to see, to be fair, because they'll be hitting longer clubs into that off that upslope. But the precision iron play is the big thing. You know, we've heard them saying that you know it's not the narrowest of courses, but generally it suits the draw. You know, famously Keimer talked about changing his game to try and get a draw to suit Augusta, which was just bonkers. I thought at the time. So again, you know, we talk about Rory fits into that because he likes to draw the ball. But the big thing is a wedge game and the precision iron shots and the short game with the putting. The putting is absolutely massive. But it does. We have seen scenarios down the years where, Faldo had gone kind of quiet for a few years and came back and won at Augusta. Tiger won at Augusta. After all they'd been through. Alazabal, after all his injuries, came back and won at Augusta. So we've seen that. There's sort of horses for courses or people that know the golf course, and that's one of the big things. But we've also seen Danny Willett winning. A wee bit out of the blue. So there's always that scenario as well. But generally, it's someone that knows the course inside out and where to miss it and what side of the flag to be on.
Andy, Alistair made a good point there. Is that you can see years where like the best player can sometimes win, but you do have that other thing as well where like Danny Willett can win it. Do you know what I mean? There are Trevor Immelman can win it. There's a lot of. This is the one place where a lot can happen. It's not. You need to have a steady hand. You need to get everything right. What do you look for in a Masters winner?
It's really just hanging about. Really, it's the old cliche, isn't it? Hang about to the back nine on Sunday, but Yeah, definitely good iron player. I think. I mean, all these guys are super talented anyway, but a good iron player I think is really important because it's not so much about hitting, other regular tournaments about just hitting the greens or trying to get close to the pin. It's 30 feet away could be better than being 6 feet above the hole or something like that. So it's plotting your way about, good course management. So it's precision iron play for me, but it's really just if you can just be there, hanging about back, the back nine Sunday. Look at I think Schwartzel won it. He birdied the last 4 holes to kind of just fall into it, being the winner, a bit like Danny Willett, hung about. Fantastic last round. Jordan Spieth collapsed. He just kind of fell into it a little bit. So it's just being there, in the last 9 holes, hanging about. And I think the guy who's the favourite, Scotty Scheffler, he's the biggest kind of worker of the lot. He's just going to be there. You can't imagine him not being there come back night on Sunday. You just can't see him, not being, even if he's not playing well, he'll still be a factor, I think, anyway. So, yeah, just hanging about, I think, is a really good trait to have and be in the mix, but with a chance, because anything can happen the last few holes.
So we'll go around the panel before we wrap up. Alastair, we'll start with you. Give us your contenders. Who do you think could win? Like we're looking at this as well. Please gamble responsibly as well to anybody that's watching, but we're going to try and pick you some winners. Alastair, we'll start with you. Who do we think could be worth a few quid this week?
Well, you can't. I just can't see past Scheffler. Really don't. I think he is the obvious one, and then I'd be looking at. I think there's a decent chance that Jason Day might feature. He's been playing pretty well. He's starting to look like his old self in terms of results. And as I said, as a wee outsider at Tyrrell Hatton.
Brilliant. So we've got Alastair's picks. Andy, what about yourself? Who do you fancy for the Masters?
I really do fancy Rory, but I would go with him as my main pick. But I think looking at it, if you finish one place above Scheffler, I think you're I would take my chances if I was in that position, but I'll go with Rory. I just think it's his. I just kind of feel it's his time. So I'll go with him as my main pick. Kind of outsiders, Jason Day, I really like. Like Al said, I think he's swinging it great. He just looks such a good player. He's one of these guys who's been injured, but when he comes back, when he's playing the way he is, you see as an absolute top player. Outsiders, I like Corey Connors. I think there's a rank outside 66-1, I believe. He's trending tied 10th, tied 8th, tied 6th. His last 3 appearances there. He's pretty average season so far, but again, horses for courses. He likes the course, obviously. And a real outside bet, Bezuidenhout, the South African boy. Again, he's got 140-1, but he's played 3 times, made 3 cuts there. So I think he could be worth a pound or 2 each way. You never know.
Yeah, my dad will be watching this show and he will have lit up when he heard the name Bezuidenhout because he's backed him in everywhere recently. Him and Minwoo Lee, they're his 2 that he's standing by at the moment. Just quickly, I'll go through mine. I do kind of think this could be McIlroy's time. Again, from a betting perspective, would I back him at that price? Probably not, but I do think he's got a great chance. I think if any of the big 3 won, I would be. I mean, I think it's one of those where if any of the 3 of them won, you wouldn't be surprised at all. I like Xander Schauffele for this. I've liked him around Augusta for a while. He's been knocking on the door. If he gets in, and I think he needs to win the Texas Open, Ricky Fowler could be about kind of 50, 66-1. He's been second a few years. Do you know what I mean? He's always there or thereabouts. I wouldn't dismiss him. My main pick would probably be Cameron Young. He will win multiple PGA Tour events. I think he's, as you say, second last year at the Open, second last week in the match play where he played some terrific stuff again. Just kept it very similar to what you need at Augusta. He never kind of gave up last week against. He had a lot of big kind of tight victories at the match play, so he can stick in. The one as well, just a wee outside him out at 50-1, Tom Kim. He's another player I quite like going forward. He's only 20. Again, he's just been steady this season, steady the past couple of years, just breaking through. and I think he could be a contender as well. So I think McIlroy's a good chance. I like my 3 picks would probably be Schauffele and Tom Kim and Cameron Young. So they were my 3. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting week where we're going to be watching. We're going to be betting responsibly as well. And it's been a brilliant to have the golf show back. We're going to obviously keep this going for kind of big events. We'll obviously have a weekly golf column on the channel where we'll put a preview of big events over the week. And we're going to wrap up this show here. First of all, I want to thank Andy Fullen for coming on. Thank you very much, Andy. It's been a pleasure.
No, not at all, Scott. Thanks for inviting me on. Yeah, love talking about the Masters. Can't wait for next week.
Absolutely. And to Alastair Forsyth as well, thank you very much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Good man. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, great fun talking golf.
Absolutely.
Biggest event of this time of year, so looking forward to it. Buzzing for it.
Tremendous. Thank you very much, everyone that's tuned in. Please enjoy the Masters and please subscribe and like our YouTube videos, and obviously you'll see a lot more golf shows throughout the year. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon. Cheers.